Hi, good morning. This is Michael Gibbs. Who's here with me this morning? You guys can let me know in the chat box. And also, somebody, if you could let me know if you can hear me. Is anyone on this call with me? I see what looks like 8 people. If you guys can introduce yourself, I'll begin. My name is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects, and we're an organization dedicated towards building high-performance cloud computing careers. Today on this live stream, really, you can ask me any type of cloud architect career questions, and I will answer them for you. I will ask you further questions so I can give you the best guidance. We try and do this as often as possible. At least we try and do it almost every week on a Wednesday, but we can't always. The goal is to help you all build your cloud computing career. The first question I see, it looks like it's from RamG241. Are you still here, RamG241? If you could let me know in the comment section. Hi, RamG. Will the solution architect be the first step towards becoming a cloud architect? Well, it could be. But what is your background, RamG241? Do you have any network background or some data center background or anything else? Okay, RamG, could you tell me how many years you spent in, say, networking per se, and how many years in data center, or how many years of Linux? Could you put some information about your background, and then I can tell you what the next steps would be. And also, I'd like to know your goal career. Now, you said cloud architect. I'm assuming that means an actual architect, someone that's going to design things and meet with clients and such. Can you confirm that you're looking for that? Well, first tell me exactly how much time you have in background, and then I'll make recommendations to become a cloud architect, and then I'll also confirm what a cloud architect is for you. And then Jeannie, I'm so happy that you're here. Do you know? So while I'm waiting for RamG, Malad, absolutely. Do you know of any source for improving executive writing skills, etc., and books that we can improve upon that? So yes, there was a book, Emotional Intelligence by Boyatis, and Daniel Goldman, which was fantastic for developing emotional intelligence. And I will say that regarding writing skills, there is a good one. I'm actually looking in my library. Bear with me, because it's a great question you asked. There's something that was sent to me many years ago that I absolutely loved. And do I still have it, or did I give it away to someone because I liked it so much? Checking for you. Well, I don't see that. I will tell you, there is one book that really made the biggest difference to me coming out of my MBA program. One of my executive coaches had told me to read this book, Why Business People Speak Like Idiots, and she taught me how to make my business speaking much more understandable. And all the traits that were in this book made a big difference in my writing as well, so I highly recommend this book. This book is written by Brian Fugger. Actually, I'll pop that up so any of you guys can see if you're looking as well. Not the easiest thing to see on a YouTube live streams window, but highly recommend this book, Why Business People Speak Like Idiots. And also highly recommend the book Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goldman and Boyatis. Okay, RamG, you're a purely Java J2E developer, mainly working on backend web services. Distributed computing, you have about 14 years of experience. Okay, that is really great, RamG241. Now I know where your background is. Have you spent any time on the network or on the data center, or has it purely been working on software development? Because you say purely Java application, I'm just trying to get a little more information. If all of the time that you actually spent has actually been in software development, you're going to have 2 realistic clear options. You can go down the career path of a cloud architect, or you could go down the path of a DevOps engineer. And I know you said you wanted to do a cloud architect role. So a cloud architect role, I'm going to redefine it for you because there's so much confusion on all these job descriptions. A cloud architect role is purely a customer-facing role. You're going to meet with a client. You're going to ask business, legal, technical requirements. You're going to evaluate their systems, what their servers look like, what their storage looks like, what their network looks like their security structure looks like. And then you're going to be able to take that, evaluate the current systems they have, and see if they would work properly in the cloud, and or then come up with a migration plan to get them to the cloud. So that's what a cloud architect would do. Now, in order to become a cloud architect, and Anna, I'm so happy you're here, but in order to become a cloud architect, if you've got no background, you're going to have to do the following. First and foremost, you're going to have to learn the cloud. And learning the cloud means learning the network, and it means learning the data center. The cloud is simply a lower performance, reduced functionality, incredibly simplistic, which is wonderful, incredibly agile version of the network and the data center. So the cloud is just a virtualized network and data center. And because they manage it for you, they do 90% of the complexity for you. So managing the server's operating system, managing the IGP like OSPF, managing the IBGP of all the routes that you're taking from everywhere else, that's all being done by the cloud. They're managing the hypervisors on the server. For the most part, they're managing the Kubernetes clusters with services like ECS or EKS, well, EKS for Kubernetes. So realistically speaking, they do all that. But in order to design a system, you still have to know what it works. So you can't really determine how you're going to move servers over if you don't understand server architecture. You can't determine how you're going to move the network unless you know the network architecture. So you're going to have to learn these things, and you're going to have to get cloud certified. And the only reason you're really getting cloud certified is to put something on your resume that says, I know something about the cloud and I know the services that are available. Cloud certification training does not teach you how to be a cloud architect. It teaches you the name of the services and how to configure them. So RAMG 241, I'm going to tell you what we do and how we train our architects. Now, you could do these things on your own, or you could do them with us, but this is how we build cloud architects, and this is how we get them their first cloud architect jobs. First and foremost, because the cloud is nothing more than a network and a data center, we make sure people learn the network and the data center. So we teach server virtualization, we teach containers, and we have our students build all these things. We have our students build firewalls, we have our students build VPN concentrators, we have our students build Active Directory servers from scratch to really learn IAM. And then after you've built every component that makes the cloud possible, then build your own cloud. You can build a Nutanix cloud, an OpenStack Ansible cloud, or both of them. Because after you build a cloud, now you know the cloud. So first we're saying learn all the underlying technology that make the cloud possible, then then the cloud. And then after that, you've got to do case studies. Now we do case studies with our students. You could go and interview some chief information officers, but you've got to do something like this. In our case, we actually do it twice a week where we have our students actually interview a CIO. In this case, it's a mock CIO, it's me, and I always give them technical requirements, and they take these technical requirements and they design an architecture. But if you know some CIOs or you know some network architects that have been in the industry for about 20 years, you can ask them these kind of questions too. But you got to be able to look at the underlying infrastructure. You got to learn the underlying infrastructure, what it is, how it works, and why you would use it. And then you've got to learn all the pieces and parts that make it together. And then after that, once you know how to design an entire cloud and you've done the case studies, then the certified solution architect, associate, and professional are going to be part of what you need to get that cloud architect job. So that would be my path for you. First, learn the cloud, learn the network, get certified, get hired. Incredibly important to focus on interview skills because the cloud architect role requires a lot more executive presence and communication skills than software because this is a customer facing. If you can work on your business acumen, great. All these things. If you can work on your emotional intelligence, fantastic. All these things will substantially improve the capabilities and performance and the salary of your cloud architect career. So that would be my path. Now, all these labs that I'm telling you to do, you can do it one of two ways. If you wanted to be one of our students, we could, and you have access to our servers. If you do not, and that's fine, what we recommend is you buy a used refurbished server that's at least 3 years old and no more than 7 years old, because we want to make sure it's got enough power to do the lab, but you at least 3 years old, so you don't have to pay too much. Now, what we recommend is a Xeon system with 16 cores and a minimum of 128 gigs of RAM and either several drives in a RAID 0 configuration or a couple of, or at least an SSD or an NVMe SSD, so you can build all these things with high performance. Server like that's about $1,000, and typically our students, typically resell them via eBay. Students in our program get to do it all because it's all included, and it's cheaper to do the whole lab and the training with us than buying the server. Having said that, you can do this all on your own, buy a server instead of the server when you're done. So Ramji, how long does it take to typically do this? Our students typically learn this process in about 4 months. We use a 16-week program with our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, and it takes us 16 weeks. Sometimes a little longer if someone's got less of a background, some a little shorter if someone's got a huge background, but it typically takes about 16 weeks to do this. And then after that, you can, while people are doing that, sure, you do the Certified Solution Architect Associate. That's your first exam. Skip the Cloud Practitioner. There's no benefit or point of ever taking the Cloud Practitioner. It will not result in you getting any job ever, except unless you're trying to apply for a sales job. And it's a hard exam because all exams are hard, and they can make the simple exam hard just to make it hard. So skip the Cloud Practitioner. We never recommend that to anyone. Go straight to the Associate. When you're done the Associate, do the Professional. Because you've got a good software development background, but you've got to learn the network and the data center. When you marry that with presentation skills, emotional intelligence, executive presence, you'll have a great cloud architect job and you'll be very successful in your role. So before I go to the next person, Ramji 241, do you have any more questions? Okay, and then I'll go back to Malad. So Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goldman. Absolutely, that's the book I actually meant. Ramji, you're more than welcome. Any questions, seriously, by all means, we're happy to answer them. So please, please, please bring us any questions. We love answering questions because we understand what in business we call the term opportunity cost. If you invest your time or money in place one, you can invest in place two. So we want to make sure that you get to your goal as fast as possible. Time is money. The average cloud architect in the US earns $593 per day, and we don't want to see you spend 9 months of your time going down a rabbit hole. We want to get you to your place to get you to the best place we possibly can. Mohammed Mahudin. Hi, Mike. GoCloud has 2 different courses, the Bootcamp and the Cloud Architect Career Development. And which should we go for in general? The Cloud Architect Career Development, Mohammed, is the best course that we have. I'll tell you about the Bootcamp. So the Cloud Architect Career Development Program actually includes all the videos from the live Bootcamp we actually did a week ago at no additional charge. So the Cloud Architect Career Development Program really took me about 20 years to put this program together. I've been in tech for over 25. I actually started in tech technically in 1993, which I actually am almost embarrassed to say. And I've been coaching others for actually over 20 years now, helping them with their first job or best tech job. And it took me 20 years to put that program together. It's a combination of soft skills, emotional intelligence training, sales skills, presentation skills, literally everything to really help someone really get to their ultimate goals. And that's why we put that program together. And we ran the boot camp for one reason and one reason only. We knew our students wanted more than all that we were giving them with all of our lectures. So we thought we'd run a boot camp and we'd film the boot camp, and we'd add all that boot camp to our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. So the students in our Cloud Architect Career Development would get another 30 hours or so content because we wanted them to have everything. So in that program, we have 2 live lectures per week where we discuss architecture. You asked, that's why I'm talking about it. Otherwise, we'll get back to the questions and answers. So we do 2 live sessions per week. We have pre-recorded HD videos that have lessons to do. There's homework assignments to do. Then, of course, there's labs in this program that include everything from building a firewall, to setting up your server virtualization and your containers, to building VPN concentrators, to Active Directory. All of our students build the cloud. All of our students do extensive case studies. Our students have access to the entire Certified Solution Architect Associate and Professional programs, as well as the Advanced Networking and Advanced Security, all included. And they get a lot of technical things. And we even have a new Slack channel with such collaboration where you can start your own Zoom meetings and work with each other on teams and group projects together. So we're pretty excited about it. I will drop a link to that along with the 25% coupon code in this chat box. And then I will go to the next question, but I want to make sure, did I answer your question there before I move on, Mohammed? Well, if you have more questions, Mohammed, please let me know. I'm also, in case you want to reach out to me and ask questions, we won't be able to do this for too much longer, but I wanted to give you my phone number in case you had a question. So it's actually +1 973 896. So you have access to that. So great, Mohammed. So now the next question here was Stephanie says, good morning, Stephanie. Good morning. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. or reach out and we'll happily answer them. But thank you for being here. Malad, do I have a plan for a new boot camp? Well, the kind of boot camp that we ran internally about 2 weeks ago, where we had a whole 6 or 7 day architecture course, and then Nemri, going to help you with that question. That is the most dangerous advice and question I've actually seen out there, and I'm definitely going to address yours in a second, because I definitely want to help you, and I want to save you 6 months of time, or 9 months of time to help you have a better life. So, are we running another boot camp very soon? The answer is probably not. As an organization, we are not in the certification business. We are in the helping people get hired business. We're in the career development business. We are in the career coaching business. When I create AWS training, the only reason I create AWS training is I looked and saw all the training materials that were out there for AWS training. And I knew that you could get certified, but you'd probably never be hireable at the end of the training unless that you actually had experience. And it upset me. So what I decided to do was make my own training. And typically speaking, we give away our own training for free. So as a company, we do architecture training. We create cloud architects, and architecture training and certification training are very different. But we are going to, just because I feel important about the community, we're going to run a free AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional Bootcamp. And we're going to run that in 2 weeks. You're all more than welcome to attend. I'm going to drop the link for the registration. Please feel free to do that. And we also have a free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate e-course on my YouTube channel. Feel free to look for that, as well as free ebooks. And where our company is releasing a free AWS Advanced Security and an AWS Advanced Networking book coming soon. And if we keep seeing, and who knows what we'll do with that in the future. So Nemri, Insaf, you have asked the most important question. And I know where your question is coming from, because there's a person in Australia that's giving people what I call the most dangerous cloud computing advice I've ever seen. In order to become a certified solutions architect professional, train to be a certified solutions architect professional. There is no development that the cloud architect actually does in their job, and there is zero sysops that a cloud architect does in their jobs. And if you wanted to be a cloud architect and you spent 3 months preparing for each test, that's going to cost you approximately $80,000 of lost wages, because the average cloud architect earns basically $600 a day. And if you take 6 months to do this, you've basically lost $80,000. Additionally, Nemri, if you were to basically try to become a cloud architect and then you decided to take an Exceloper and a SysOps exam, when you present yourself to the hiring manager like me, I'm going to look at your resume and say, who are you? Why would you take a developer course and a maintenance course if you want to be an architect? An architect speaks to the customers. An architect asks the right questions. An architect is a designer. An architect needs to know how everything works. But as an architect, you may never in your entire career touch the command line. You may never even in your entire career touch the management console. Many of my graduates that work as cloud architects never touch the management console. And I had a 25-year architecture career. And let me tell you, in 25 years of being an architect, after my first 2 years where I worked as an engineer, I never touched the configuration of another router or switch, because architects don't do that. SysOps people basically upgrade operating systems and maintain things. Architects design them. So if you train for a job, the SysOps, unless you want to be a SysOps professional, it will not help you pass. You got the job. And if you train to be a developer, again, that will not help you be a cloud architect, because cloud architects don't develop. Developers develop things. So really important. So happy you asked that question. Also, I'm going to give you the second side of why this is the guy in Australia that's giving this advice is providing the most dangerous advice ever. The Certified Solution Architect Professional exam is a substantial exam. As a rule, it has moderate depth of knowledge, and it shows some degree of competency. I would call that like a college graduation exam. And when you look at the Certified Solution Architect Associate or the Developer Associate or the SysOps Associate, you would look at them. They're very challenging exams, but the depth of knowledge necessary to do that is like first grade or kindergarten. Hard exams, but the knowledge isn't that serious. So if you go to first grade 5 times, that does not prepare you for at all for a career in as a college graduate. Go to kindergarten 5 times, you're still kindergarten. The solution architect professional is like college. If you want to pass a college exam, train for the college exam, train for the certified solution architect professional. Do not spend any time in SysOps or DevOps unless you want to work in SysOps or DevOps. And if you want to work in SysOps or DevOps, then it's great, but make sure you train for the job you desire. Nemri, did I answer your question completely? So hopefully I did. Now, someone asked if I was offering a solution, RamG241 asked if I was running a solutions architect associate boot camp in the future. The answer is yes. I'm running a certified solution architect professional boot camp in 2 weeks. On the YouTube channel we actually have a completely free AWS certified solution architect training program. 100% is covered and it's all free. What I'm going to do is towards the end of this call, actually, you know what? I don't know if it's going to blank my screen to do this, but I'm going to go open another browser window and I'm going to get the link to that for you. So bear with me for 1 second and I will take care of that. I'll get you the link to our AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate Training course. We put it all on, we put it all on YouTube so people could have access to it for free. I'll get you that information right now. So here's our Certified Solution Architect Associate Training program. You can do all that. It's completely free. We're going to offer that Certified Solution Architect Professional Bootcamp, like I mentioned, in 2 weeks. Attend that. That will be everything you need for the associate and the professional. And here's why. Since I've interviewed 1,000 people that have taken other people's certification training courses, and I have yet to find someone that I would believe was hireable. And being hireable is the most important thing to me. When I'm going to run that bootcamp next week or in 2 weeks from now, we're going to start at the beginning and we're going to build a good foundation. And then we're going to ramp up as fast as possible. So in that, we're going to have the way that we're going to run that boot camp is we're going to have 20 minutes of lecture, 10 minutes of questions for 3 hours a day for 5 days straight. And in that way, everybody's going to become very knowledgeable on the cloud because you'll be able to ask questions just like a live classroom. We want to give you the best experience, whether you're one of our paid students or one of our free students. We're going to give you that. So we've got you covered in the AWS training, and we're going to do that completely free. As a company, we do cloud architect training and we build cloud architect careers, which is a very different process because we have to teach the network, we have to teach the data center, we have to teach all of that. So hope I answered your question there. So the next thing is from Gopal Krishna. Do you suggest any books to read for cloud migrations? The reality is they don't really talk about a lot of cloud migrations in books. We do it in our training every week. 100% of the time we talk about it. We deal with this twice a week for our students in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program because it's such an important concept. And I mean, it is that critical. Our students do it twice a week with me. So that's one of the things that we strongly recommend. Now, having said all of that, every Tuesday, what we do is we try and have a Cloud Architect Experience webinar. And on these free webinars, what we do is we teach you all that's necessary to build the technical competency and depth that you actually would need to get hired. And on a lot of these, I make them a spontaneous cloud architect challenge. Like when I get a lot of people, what we actually did, so we're going to get a lot of people on these calls and we design a cloud architecture migration. I give you a situation for a bank, say, or a retail company or a healthcare organization. You get to interview me on all the systems, just like you would a real client. We do this to teach people what being a cloud architect is. And then you will get to design the system. And after you design the system, you know what else you're going to get to do? You're going to design it for 2 different clouds. And we do that on our free trainings. And when you get to see what our free training is, then you get an idea what our paid training is, because they're not even on the same level. But but you can definitely do that. You can come next Tuesday if you desire. The link for that training is right over here. Oh, that was not the one I was looking for. That's not the webinar. That's the link to the program. I wanted to send you the link to the free webinar. So bear with me. I'm going to find that for you. I want to. Here's the one. Here's the one I wanted to invite you to. So this is going to be a completely free webinar, and you'll get to try a sample cloud migration. So I hope I answered that. Wyham, good morning. You have been in the networking, DC, cloud security. Okay. You have a certification such as a CCIE. Okay, excellent. You should be easy to move. Palo Alto and Solution Architects Associated Networking. Unfortunately, you don't do any cloud. You've had a few interviews for this, and you don't have too much experience in the application. Most of the cloud roles need networking skills are engineer levels, not architects, such as cloud network. So you wanted to ask if you're stuck with networking, you do something like being a solution architect with. Okay, Wyham, your situation is pretty similar. Pretty similar. I will say this. I know a tremendous number of senior and principal cloud architects that are working directly, that went straight from CCIE to principal architect at places like Amazon and GCP with no other transitions. So there's, realistically speaking, two things going on. One is they did have some data center backgrounds, but you may have as well, but they were also good interviewers. So 2 or 3 of these people were my students. So when it actually comes to getting a job, I have a rule. If someone's interviewed more than 3 times for a role and they don't get it, then there's a problem. There's either a problem with the interview technique, there's a problem with the way the technology has been described, or there's a problem with regards to lack of knowledge. If you are a CCIE and you've done heavy CCIE work, and you understand how to design systems, how to optimize your IGP, how to load share across redundant BGP links, how to secure your systems with things like how to use VLANs and private VLANs and 802.1x, and you understand NAT and route filtering and route aggregation, you're 50% there, and there are a tremendous number of cloud network architects. Now, you also need to understand server virtualization and have it on your resume. You also have to have containers on your resume. You also have to have firewalls, which I'm sure you have with the Palo Alto things on your resume. And then you're going to need to really understand and be able to describe what a hypervisor is, what a container is, how the containers are managed, how a firewall works, how all these things work. So you can do that. So what we do with our clients to get them prepared is we have our clients pick a specialty or a second specialty. And this is how we get past this. So we typically get them fired up, and in the process, we build real knowledge on all those data center technologies. And if you know those data center technologies, really well and how they work, then there's another challenge going on with regards to interview skills or things. And we could talk to you tomorrow if you desire, or you could call me and I can help guide you. But if you're in one of those positions and you're struggling to get a cloud architect job and you're actually a CCIE, then we need you to evaluate something different. Either it's related to the way you're interviewing, or it's related to some data center knowledge, or it's related to something that it's not coming out. For things like that, without speaking to you, I don't know how to help you, because with your role, you should easily be able to do this. Again, I'm a CCIE. In fact, my CCIE number is 7417. That's how long I've been a CCIE. And I spent 90% of my time in there and security. And I get asked every day by at least 3 recruiters to go work in a cloud architect role. And these are senior roles. Some are networking, some are not. Admittedly, I do know the data center, and I have a lot of data center background. I've done a lot of server virtualization and things like that. So I can interview you personally offline. And then after I interview you, I can tell you exactly what you need to do, but it's going to be very hard to hear that without speaking to you first. So I'm going to list, I'm going to pop my number here. And from there, if you give me a call, send me a text message, we'll arrange a time for me to speak to you. I'll be able to give you a mini interview. And on that mini interview, I'll know exactly what you need to do. So now that we answered that question, who else has a question for me? You're welcome, Wyham, and I look forward to speaking with you. I remember doing my 20-some years ago when I took my CCI exam for the first time, back when it was a 2-day exam, and I know how hard we all worked for that. And I know exactly what we need to do after I speak with you. So, okay, please share Cloud Architect 100 questions which are the most important. Oh, well, and Johnny, that's a great question. And if you've noticed, I have been releasing every week a video that has 4 to 6 or 7 questions on Cloud Architect interview questions, and they're all on my YouTube channel. In fact, just today, we released another video that has a tremendous number of Cloud Architect interview questions. And I'm going to give you the name of the video right now. And but we have, if you look on my channel on interview skills and interview tactics, I have probably 30 videos on how to do that. And some are related to interview questions. Some are related to the soft skills. Some are related to emotional intelligence. Some are related to some techniques on how to shut down the interview on your terms. Some are related to reading the person's body language. Some are related to the person's personality type. There are so many opportunities for you to get some fantastic interview knowledge and experience that we provide. And we do that on our YouTube channel. Now, our students in our program obviously get a lot more, and it's much more directed and focused. But there's still a lot you can do on our YouTube channel, and it's completely free. And thank you for Stephanie for saying today's YouTube video is great. I really appreciate that. And I just dropped a link to that video for you as well. So, who has the next question for me? Give you guys a minute or two. Seriously, any questions related to your careers, I'm really happy to help with. While we're waiting, I'm going to let you know that tomorrow we have, and I do this twice per week. I do a free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. I do this. I first tell you how we created a system that helps people get their first tech job. Then I tell you exactly what hiring managers desire, because if you can become exactly what the hiring manager desires, you can get hired. And for example, and then we teach you the things you need to know, what your certification portfolio should look like, how to use recruiters so you don't get stuck in HR. And we do that for free. We do it twice a week. We're doing another one tomorrow. I'm going to drop a link over here. While we're doing this, if any of you guys don't mind, if you like what we do, if you can leave a like or a comment on our videos, it actually helps us, our channel grow, because the way things actually work, and by growing our channel, we can offer more free services. So if any of you guys are enjoying what we're doing, you don't mind leaving a like or a comment or subscribing, thank you. Okay, ABCD Parrot. I love that name. I had a parrot for many years. Just started applying to cloud engineer roles as it suits me for now, and then later switching. How does that sound? Well, ABCD Parrot, that sounds great if that's your skill set. ABCD Parrot, are you very knowledgeable on hands-on configuration of things? And do you like to get deep in hands-on configuration? And if that is that something you actually enjoy? Because if that's something you enjoy, that's great. A cloud engineering role will assist you in getting a cloud architect role later. So the answer to that is great. Having said all of that, the cloud engineer versus the cloud architect are so different in what they do. So different. The cloud engineer is going to be deep in terms of knowledge of services. That cloud engineer is going to be an expert in working to really configure an S3 bucket and lock down the bucket, and they know all the hands-on configuration commands. That's what a cloud engineer does. The cloud engineer is going to spin up your instances into your Bootstrap scripts. A cloud engineer might write some automation scripts, even though that's typically sysops. But a cloud engineer is going to be the hands-on technical person that does this stuff. A cloud architect, by comparison, is a customer-facing person. It is a cross between an executive, a business executive, and a cloud engineer. A cloud architect will be looking at how all the pieces and parts of the system work. They're going to be looking at the global design. The cloud architect is customer-facing. They're going to ask clients questions. They're going to be doing a lot of documentation, a lot of presentation. Those are the skill sets of the cloud architect. Whereas the cloud engineer will do minimal writing, minimal speaking. They're going to be locked at their desk, and they're going to be in the weeds all day long. And some people really love being in the weeds. And for people that do, like I started off my career as a CCIE, and I love being in the weeds for the first year or two. I enjoyed configuring routers, but it starts and stops there. So realistically speaking, so if you want to be a cloud engineer, you can understand those skills. And if you want to be a cloud architect, you've got to train differently. So sure, if you want to get a couple of years as a cloud engineer on the architect pathway, that's sure fine. But make sure you're getting presentation training, emotional intelligence training, speech training, soft skills training, documentation training, and all the other things that you will not learn how to do as a cloud engineer. And the other thing you have to worry about is once you've been a cloud engineer too long or an engineer too long, it's often hard to transition into architect roles, because what people will happen is they're going to look at you and they're going to typecast you and say, hey, that's the cloud architect or the cloud engineer. And it's kind of like the movie star that's done nothing other than war movies. And when they try and do something other than a war movie, people don't even look at them. So you can have your short-term stay as a cloud engineer on the way to be a cloud architect, but don't make it too long, and make sure you focus on all the skills that are necessary to become a cloud architect. So hope I answered your question, ABC Parrot. So cool dude 5659, there are so many services and necessary to know most of them. Okay, before I do that, do you have another question, ABCD Parrot? Okay. So cool dude 5699. Okay, there are so many AWS services. Should you know all of them? Of course not. So here is what a cloud architect does. I'm going to say this again. They're going to meet with the client. They're going to ask their business, legal, and technical requirements. Then after they do all of that, and they know the business, legal, and technical requirements, they're going to evaluate all the systems. What are your current systems? What do they look like? What are the performance, CPU, memory, all of those things. These are the kind of things, the questions that are going to be asked. And after that, you're going to design an architecture. So let's look at it this way. Let's say I told you we have web servers that have 128 cores and 4 terabytes of RAM and an NVMe RAID array that provides 10 million IOPS. And these things are cooking along at 80% CPU utilization and 80% memory. So I've got a big site. And we've got 4 of them and they're load shared. You know, as the architect, you're going to have to look and say, okay, that's what the compute instance is. On the cloud, we're going to need something similar. We can't go smaller with autoscaling because they're already running at 80%. We probably need autoscaling to go out. And then you're going to start saying, well, okay, we need a virtual machine with 128 cores and 4 terabytes of RAM. And we're going to need multiple ones. So then you're going to go to the cloud provider. And I don't care whether it's Azure, I don't care whether it's AWS, I don't care whether it's GCP. And you're just going to say, which virtual machine fixed this? And it's going to be an EC2 instance on AWS that's going to be at a certain thing, memory or CPU optimized or GPU optimized based on what you need. On Oracle, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to go find a compute instance. And guess what? You're going to on GCP, you're going to compute engine. It doesn't matter which cloud provider you're on if you understand the cloud. So instead of worrying about memorizing the name of AWS services, that's what you do to pass an exam. What you need to know is what are the systems as an architect? How do the systems work? How are they together? And those are the things that are really going to help you be an architect. And then, you know, because twice a week in our program, I have my students actually design architectures. First, they interview me. Then after they interview me, I give them all the technical requirements of the design. And then they design it in terms of tech. And then after that, they go to the AWS under the GCP or the Oracle, and they pick things, the services that are going to match these things. So no, you don't need to remember everything to be effective. And I would encourage you not to. I would encourage you to spend 90% of your time as a cloud architect, either focusing on how all the systems work, how to present, how to write, how to improve your executive presence, emotional intelligence. These are the skills that the cloud architect needs. And the rest of your time, focus on learning server virtualization, containers, networking, security, all the things that make the cloud possible. That's how you build a good career. Do not waste your time memorizing the names of every service and every instance. It's not important. What is important is knowing how to design, because cloud architects design. So that's what you need to do. So Nagesh, best practices for the solution implementation of Oracle Cloud deployment. Realistically speaking, the best practice is to find out what the business, legal, and technical requirements are. Find out what they are. For example, some people need 5 nines, which is very complicated to do. And you can't do it in multi-AZ either. You've got to get a lot more complicated than that. But some people need 4 nines, which can be done with multi-AZ. Some people need sub-millisecond latency, which makes cloud computing completely impossible because the time of direct connection is too far. And they need to stay in the data center. Some do not. So I hope I answered your question with that. So the best practice is to get really, really, really good at interviewing the client and knowing how all the systems work. And when you know the client and how all the systems work, then you are in the position to design the right systems. So that's the first thing long before you get to best practices. Ram-G, is there a study plan that you can share to become a cloud architect? Yeah, sure. I'm happy to share the study plan that we use. It's the syllabus that we use to take people and turn them into cloud architects. You can actually expand my syllabus. This is what we use with our clients. If you click that link, you'll be able to see everything that we're doing. So, Wolf Yale, you're studying for your bachelor's degree in software engineering. That's great. Love when I hear people going into tech. Okay, so object storage and block storage, ABDC Pirate. Can I talk about the difference? Absolutely, more than happy to. And then we'll go to Cool Dude and then RAMG 241, and then we'll consistently ask anybody's questions. I want to make sure we take good care of all of you on this presentation. So you had asked the difference, ABCD Parrot, between block storage and object storage. So we're going to talk about it. So block storage and object storage are both storage area network technologies. And storage area networks are typically how enterprises store large amounts of data outside of their servers. And they're typically these big giant machines that are full of hard drives and a RAID array, and they get plugged into the servers via something called fiber channel. And it's basically another type of network built for storage. Block storage and object storage, though both storage area network technologies, are very different. For example, in block storage, you take your data, you break it down into blocks, and the blocks are placed on the RAID array in the most efficient location. They can be placed literally anywhere. And because the data in block storage is placed in the most efficient location, it is high performance. Block storage is highly useful for files that need to be modified quite frequently. Block storage is good for things that change. Block storage looks and feels like it's regular storage, even though it's not. And because of that, you can install an operating system on it. In the cloud, people use block storage because block storage can look and feel like natural storage. And because of that, in a cloud computing environment, systems can actually mount a block storage VM, and it can look and feel like a regular hard drive, just with a lot lower performance. So that's typically where you're using block storage. By comparison, object storage, while still a storage area network technology, does things differently. It takes your data and it breaks it down into these little things called objects. Now that's where it gets interesting. Now when the data is broken down into objects, it's stored in this flat environment, just like a database. So typically speaking, if you can imagine an environment where there's basically flat storage, there's a database which has a pointer that points to the data. And that's the way object storage works, is it's flat storage with a database effectively that points to the data. Now I had told you that object storage breaks down data into objects. Now what I haven't said yet is that objects have this data, the objects have metadata, which is data about data, which then makes it feasible for you to do things like run SQL queries and start searching with your data. So you can now use object storage as part of your big data analytics programs to do things such as build data lakes. And that's where it becomes quite interesting. So object storage is useful for that. Now, object storage is not good for files that change frequently. And the reason is files that change frequently in an object storage environment will create a new version every time a file is modified. So you could literally fill up a storage area network RAID array. For example, let's say you had a 2 terabyte video that was edited by 1,000 video editors. It would create a new 1,000 versions of that every day, which would be problematic. So object storage is only used for static files that don't change. So in the cloud computing environment, at least with AWS, they use object storage in the form of S3. S3 is their form of object storage. Because it's object storage and it's not good for files that change frequently, you use it for things like software distribution. You store images for your servers. You use it for backups. Cheap, lower performance storage, highly functional, and because it's got that metadata or data associated with the data, you can run things like SQL queries, you can get part of the data, so it's highly useful in the cloud computing environment, but they are different in the way they work. Block storage breaks data down into blocks, looks and feels like natural storage, is used for frequently modified files. Object storage takes data, breaks it down into objects. Each object has metadata, which makes you it enables you to do great things like run SQL queries and build data lakes. But object storage is only useful for files that don't change, because every time you modify an object, a new version is created. I hope I answered your question there, ABCD Parrot, on block storage versus object storage. And then after that, Cool Dude 5699, do you ever use a questionnaire? Absolutely. Our students have a questionnaire that we've developed internally and that they can use to ask clients questions. It's based upon my 20-some years of experience. Plus, I had all the students ask questions, and we built it at Collaborative One together, and I helped guide it because I always like to guide my students into excellence. I like to have them do things with my help. And when we ran our last boot camp and we had a lot of people on the call, we had all 30 or so of our students. Not we have more than 30 students. We had about 30 or so of our students on these calls, and together we collaborated. We had security experts on the call. We had database experts on the call, application architects on the call, and of course me as a long-term cloud and network and security architect. And we have a list. So yes, you have to build yourself a list, and you have to be able to know which questions to ask the customer based upon what's actually working. Ramji 241, how much depth and breadth of networking knowledge do you need for a cloud architect role? Great question, Ramji 241. It depends on the cloud architect role you want. And what I mean by that is, if you want to be a cloud network architect, you're going to have some important knowledge on at least BGP. You're going to have to understand NAT in depth, and it's more than just to connect to the internet. I can tell you that right now. You're going to have to understand BGP tuning, meaning how do you prefer one path over another so you can do load sharing, not the way they teach it in AWS Advanced Networking, which is basically buy a link and block one. People that are buying multiple links or higher bandwidth links are going to want to use both, and you need to know how to do that. That's the way we CCIEs always do it, to connect to multiple internet service providers, so you need to know how to do that. You are going to need to understand VLANs and VLAN trunking, and you're going to, realistically speaking, if you want to be a good cloud network architect, then you are going to be in a position where you've got to have some kind of knowledge of the network and how to route summarize and your IP addressing scheme. So that level of knowledge is definitely important to know when you're working in networking in the cloud. Because the cloud provider does 90% of the networking, realistically speaking, you don't need to know that much, but at least understand those are the kind of networking things you need to know. Now, it looks like I missed a question. Nat, I'm always so happy to see you. It looks like I missed a question from Wolf Yeo. You have a healthcare background, me too. And you're interested to work as a cloud engineer, you're a pressure practitioner, and you're studying for your solution architect. So, Wolf Yeo, I too have a healthcare background. I used to practice internal medicine long before I moved into technology 25 years ago. I was a nurse practitioner in the US. I had my own office. I loved it, but I like networking more. So I know what it takes, and I've worked with a lot of healthcare providers and helped them transition from networking to the cloud. I don't know what you're doing in healthcare. Generally speaking, healthcare backgrounds are fantastic for cloud computing, and here's the reason. In healthcare, we do the following. We meet with a client, we ask them questions, we perform a physical examination, we listen to the things they tell us, we make an assessment, and we build a plan. So I like to say, when I worked as a nurse practitioner, someone would come in and they'd say, my throat hurts. And I'd say, okay. I'd look in their throat and I'd see it was red. And then I'd ask them some questions. What makes it better? What makes it worse? Those kind of things. And then I'd look with what I saw versus what they told me. And then I'd say, red throat. Most likely cause is beta hemolytic strep group B, prescribe amoxicillin. Okay, so that's the medical model. And you know what the cloud architect model is? Meet with a client, ask the questions, evaluate their systems, make a diagnosis and a plan. Medicine, meet with a client, ask the questions, evaluate what's going on, make a plan. Architecture, meet with the client, ask the right questions, make a plan. Same thing. So healthcare will actually get you there. Now, healthcare would probably prepare you much better for a cloud architect role than a cloud engineering role. And the reason is healthcare is much more consultative than engineering work, so it would be a better skill set to have. So Wolf Yeo, if you want to let me know why you're interested in a cloud engineering role versus a cloud architect role, like maybe you like it better, that's great. Understand that cloud architect roles pay substantially better than cloud engineering roles. And you're probably going to have a much easier time taking a higher paid cloud architect role than you would a cloud engineering role coming from a healthcare background. So if you love cloud engineering, that's great. I'm happy to tell you next steps. If you don't, I think you're probably better off working towards the architecture side because it's going to fit better with your current skill set. Okay, Stephanie, you were transitioning from a career in financial management. That's great. You've got an electrical engineer because you worked for 1 year as a systems admin, NT, and junior network engineer. Well, Stephanie, I was an MCSE of Windows NT 4.0 more years ago than I actually really wanted to talk about. But the reality is, I forget I lost my train of thought there. I've got so many things coming in all different perspectives. My apologies. Oh, so you're transitioning from financial management. That's great. Stephanie, realistically speaking, to become a cloud solution architect, you've got to learn the network and you've got to learn the data center. First, you need to understand the network of how it works, why it works, and then you need to do the same thing. The reason I say this, I like to say, like, I enjoy cooking, and I know how to cook, realistically speaking, two kinds of foods: Jamaican food and Greek food. I have a really close friend that's Jamaican. He told me to cook Jamaican food, and I know how to cook Greek food because my family's Greek. And so they're the only two kinds of food I know how to cook, and I love to cook. If I were to make you a Greek salad and a souvlaki as a meal, and a souvlaki includes some chicken that's been marinated in some lemon juice and olive oil with some salt, pepper, oregano, and garlic for a while, and then I grill it a certain way, and then I make you a Greek salad, a real one, which only includes cucumbers, tomatoes, onions, peppers, pepperconis, and Kalamata olives with feta cheese, olive oil, and salt and oregano. That's a Greek salad. But if you've never seen a Greek salad before, it becomes impossible to cook one yourself and make it right. And if you've never seen the process to make a souvlaki, or you've never seen chicken before, how would you even know what a souvlaki is if someone described it to you? So that's what it happens when someone goes and takes what do you call it? Just a certification class. And they basically get told, here's all your ingredients, go memorize them. That's the problem. And that's where the challenge becomes. That's why the certification training is not good enough. So when you are transitioning from one career to another, you have to understand that it's going to take 6 to 9 months, and you're going to have to get some form of training to do it, because a cloud architect, the average one, at least in the US, is paid $156,000 a year, or is $153, whatever it is. But it's $593 a day. And it's unrealistic to assume that you could just do a certified solutions architect associate and then apply for a job like that. That does not mean it's hard to get. We have a program, and in our program, we basically, and you can do this with us, you can do it with others, although I don't know of any other program like this, so I'll tell you what you could do with us, and I'll tell you what you could do on your own. If you were with us, what you would do is you would meet with us twice per week, and we would do architectural live discussions together where you would interview us and you would build architectures with our team. If you were with us, you would have training on presentations, technical writing. If you were with us, you would learn all the technologies that make cloud computing possible. I mean, literally everything that makes it possible. And you will start by setting up Linux machines. You will start up building firewalls. You will set up server virtualization. You'll set up containers. You'll build the cloud. You'll set up, in order to learn IAM, you're going to build your own Active Directory servers. You can actually federate your own Active Directory servers with other things. And realistically speaking, that's what's going to get you there. That is actually how you will get a great cloud architect job. Now, we can definitely help you with our program, but if you're not, make sure you buy a server. Make sure you learn how to do all those things on your own. Make sure you can take some emotional intelligence training, and make sure you get some presentation training. Let's make sure you get some technical writing training. Make sure you get some network training, because we do all these things included. Then make sure you get your certification training. And then make sure you learn how to build the cloud, and make sure you learn how to interview a bunch of clients so you can kind of design things for them. That's our process. You could happily do it with us in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, or you could do it on your own, but that is our process. We've been using a methodology like that in different tech careers for over 20 years, helping people get their first and best tech jobs. So our method works. Like I said, you're more than welcome to do it with us. But I also wanted you to understand that we try very hard not to make anything secret about our systems, and we're more than willing to tell you exactly how we do what we do, so you can do it with us or on your own. We just want to help people get to their goals. Again, I'm going to drop off our program in here along with the coupon code for 25% off. And then Stephanie, I am going to go to your next half of your question before I transition to anyone else. Was thinking of CCNP and RHC to upskills plus my program. So what I would do, Stephanie, is I prefer to actually ask you to find out what you like. For example, you might actually find that you find cloud security more interesting other than just cloud. And I'd rather you not get the cert, Stephanie. I'd rather train you before you get the certs, and I'll tell you why. You need to, the certifications by themselves are these conceptual things that don't make a lot of sense. But if we teach you what are the systems and all the parts, and you get certified along the way, you're in a much better position to actually learn something from the certifications. Instead of just reading and going through an entire certified solution architect professional program and knowing nothing but still passing the exam and then having to learn cloud computing, it would be so much better to learn cloud computing. And while you're learning cloud computing, do the certifications and take them at the same time. But really, Stephanie, I'd like to know what your goals are. For example, your best earning potential and future career is probably going to be as a cloud security architect. And for those, we basically work with our students and we have them become a CEH or a CISSP, along with a certified solution architect professional, and boom, they have a really great technical career ahead of them. Or we can help people become generic architects where we do like a CCNP and a Red Hat certification along with and along the way. There are different options, and we like to basically ask you what you like. Part of our program, but you can do it on your own, is realistically looking at what is it that you like? What's going to make you happy? What do you enjoy learning about? And then taking that and then building yourself the perfect career development plan to get you from where you are now to your goals as fast as possible. That's why we built our program. But like I said, you could do this again on your own, but make sure you know exactly what the hiring managers want. I'm going to tell you what hiring managers want. So I want everybody to have as many options as possible. Hiring managers demand the following. First and foremost, they want someone that's technically competent. Competency matters 1,000,001 times more than experience. You could be doing the same thing wrong for the last 30 years, or you could be doing the same thing right for the last 6 months. You could know you could be really solid in 6 months, or you can be after 30 years not know how to do anything. So competency matters most. The second thing that employers matters most, Stephanie, would probably be easier to go straight to security than generic and then security. I'll explain that to you. Why don't you give me a call afterwards and I'll tell you. I don't want to see you spend 2 years to get to your goal. So I'd rather know exactly what your goals are. So employers first want someone that can do the job. The second things employers want are someone they can trust. Now, how do most people break this, and how do most people not get hired? So first things employers want is I told you someone that's capable. The next thing employers want is someone that they can trust. So what do I mean by someone they can trust? What do 90% of people do in a job interview when asked a question they don't know? They bluff, which is a lie. And basically speaking, you just prove to the hiring manager you are not hireable because they can't trust you. So employers want someone they can trust and someone that's competent. The next thing employers want is someone that is safe. What do I mean by safe? An unsafe person doesn't know what they know or don't know. They're going to get on your cloud. They're going to make a configuration mistake or a design mistake, and it's going to cause an outage, and it could cause millions of dollars or billions of dollars of damage or irreparable damage and make a company go bankrupt. So organizations care whether you're safe. So they care first, are you capable? Secondly, they care, can they trust you? And third, are you safe? So how do you work this into your career development plan? When you go on an interview and someone asks you a question you don't know, don't lie. Instead, tell the hiring manager the following. I'm sorry I've not had the opportunity to work with that technology yet, but I'm highly motivated, highly energetic, highly enthusiastic. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I know how to find the answers quickly. And if I was part of your team, I would be so excited to learn these things, and I would learn them very fast. There's a reason I said this to you. So keep that in the back of your mind, and now I'm going to tell you the rest of the things that hiring managers desire. The next thing that hiring managers desire are energetic people. Nobody wants to hire someone that's sleeping. They want someone with energy and life in them. The next thing organizations like to hire are enthusiastic people. You want to hire someone that wants to be there. Now, what's next on the organization's list? Someone that's called an energizer, someone that brings out the best in others. What else do employers want? Someone that's a team player, and they want someone that's willing to go above and beyond. So I'm going to say this again, then we're going to go back to my answer because I'm trying to save you guys on your interviews. So let's go back to so let's say someone that can do the job, someone they can trust, someone that knows what they know and knows what they don't know, someone that is energetic, enthusiastic, brings out the best in others, a team player, and someone that's going to go above and beyond. Okay, now you know what they want. So when someone asks you a question and you don't know, if you lie, the interview is over regardless of whether they're polite or not. So just know that. Now, by comparison, if you said, I've not had the opportunity to learn that yet, but I'm highly motivated, energetic, enthusiastic, I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, I know how to find the answers to things quickly. And if I was part of your team, I would do everything I could to learn that technology as fast as possible. And by the way, I know these 3 technologies, and you can ask me about any of these 3 technologies, and I can tell you all about it in depth so you can gauge my technical competency. What's different? I'll tell you what's different right now. First, I told them they could trust me by saying I've not had the opportunity to work with that. After I've established trust with the employer, I told them I was highly energetic, highly motivated, enthusiastic, a team player. 4 things they want to know. Then I told them I know what I know and I know what I don't know, which just checked off the tick, which just put a tick or a check mark in the box that says save. And then I told them I was a team player. And I basically told them everything they needed to know. And then I said, oh, by the way, I know these 3 things. So I redirected them to question me on the things that I know versus the things that I don't know. If you want a great cloud architect job, this is the way you handle things on an interview. I've interviewed at 5 companies in my life, and I've been hired by all 5 of them. I've never gone to an interview for a company that didn't hire me because I knew how to interview. And I will tell you, my students that are taught this technique do really well in interviews. I just like to share information, so I'm sharing, but that's basically the way you would approach an interview. So I'm going back to the questions. So Sujatha Suji, how do you get your first cloud architect job? I actually have a webinar tomorrow that's going to be completely dedicated towards that. And on that webinar, we're going to tell you everything that you need to do to get your first cloud architect job. So I'm going to drop the link over here so you can actually register for that one, because that's about a 45-minute to a 1-hour answer to do that. And I'm more than happy to answer that. But it's going to be a pretty big question. So what we'll do is there's that webinar. And then after that, because we do it on Zoom, I'll literally review you and say, what's your background? What's your goal? What's your desire? You'll tell me these things and we can help build you a plan on that free call. So that's how I would answer that if I was you, Sujatha Suji. And we have that call tomorrow. I sent you the invite. It's free. Questionnaire. I want to make sure I didn't forget anybody. And so Nemri, you have another question. Can you give us on the AWS machine learning specialty? So Nemri, sure. If you are a data science person, meaning that you have a background in knowing data science, when data science is the study of how to use data and how to make better inferences and decisions using data, where data science uses tools like machine learning and things, I think it's fantastic. Nemri, if you have no data science background and don't plan on working in data science, I think taking the AWS machine learning specialty is not going to help you in any way, shape, or form. Now, if you want to work in data science and you want to work in machine learning and you have a background in that, that is fantastic. But the AWS specialty certs, they're kind of like this, even at the professional level, they're so small. Like if you look at a CCNP, you've got this amount of knowledge to pass it. And then you look at the AWS Advanced Networking, it's like this. And any of those specialty certifications are not even close to having enough information to get you hired. So if you're interested in that and you've studied the machine learning and data science, I think it's wonderful. Take the certification, and the certification will show that you know how to do the data science things on the cloud. Love it. It's great. But if you don't have that, just taking an AWS random certification, and that is not going to help you. So Nemri, I hope I answered your question. I want to guide you to go down the right path. Abu Kabar Mazu, how to convince an enterprise to migrate to the cloud rather than keeping their servers on presence? Well, that's a great, great, great question. And here's the thing. Prior to making an organization migrate to the cloud, you have to determine if it even makes sense for them to go to the cloud. Some organizations should never go to the cloud. Some organizations have performance requirements that are so high it's not even possible on the cloud. Some organizations have such great technology infrastructure as is and the right staff that it's cheaper and better and faster for them to stay in the place where they're at. Other people, by comparison, would be wonderful in the cloud and would be the best thing they ever did. So it's not a matter of convincing someone to go to the cloud. And my camera's looking fuzzy, so I'm going to just blank this and then open it up and it'll usually refocus. So some people should never go to the cloud. So it's really a matter of looking. So here's the process. And it's a consultative process, Mr. Mazu. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to find out what the customer's goals are. Does the cloud enhance those goals? What are their legal requirements? Does the cloud help them maintain their legal requirements? What are the regulatory requirements? Is the cloud helpful or not helpful? Maybe they need to keep their data stored in a certain kind of location. What are their current systems running that? Are their systems running at 10% CPU and memory, and they're all there and they're paid for, and their network is small? Keep them where they're at. Maybe their systems are overloaded and it's time to buy new systems and the cloud might be there. So see the difference between Mr. Mizzou, an architect, and an engineer is an engineer knows how to configure these things. But as an architect, it's about asking the right questions, coming up with a solution to solve their challenges, and then building a business case around it. What is the cost savings to go to the cloud? What is the expected value of the opportunity to go to the cloud? What is the ROI modeling show you? What happens when you shift the capital expenses of the data center to the operational expenses of the cloud? Is it better? So that's the reason, Mr. Mizzou, that I'm saying, a cloud architect is a cross between a business executive and an engineer. And you can't tell someone to go to the cloud or stay on the cloud or stay on their data center until you've evaluated these things and built the business case. So that's why half of my training programs are based upon the business side of being a cloud architect. See, as a cloud engineer, you're just configuring things. You're never going to convince anybody to migrate to the cloud because the cloud engineers are the configurers. In order to migrate people to the cloud, you've got to be an architect. You've got to be speaking to not only the management teams, you've got to be speaking to the CEO, you've got to speak to the CIO, you've got to speak to the chief technology officer. You're going to have to speak to all the stakeholders, evaluate what they're trying to do, then show them how the cloud could potentially do it better than what they're currently doing, and then build a business case around it. So, Mr. Mizzou, I hope I answered your question. If you've got an additional question, please drop it below. And I'm happy to further answer that. Ganesh Nair, can a business analyst with 18 years experience in IT and banking do a career transition? Absolutely. What role can he look for? What are the transferable skills? So Vanesh Nair, you are in a wonderful, unique position. And what I mean by that is you've got a lot of experience in your industry. And by that, I mean, if you've been working in banking for a long period of time, you said 18 years, you know a lot about the banking industry. And that puts you in a very specialty position. So because you, like me, for example, I'll use myself as an example. I practiced medicine before I moved into tech. And by the way, I've transitioned many business analysts and many nurses and other people into tech. And as a business analyst with 18 years experience, definitely easy to do. But yours is very unique because when you are what's called an industry expert, see me, for example, I practiced medicine and I also knew networking. So then when I was working at Cisco and they decided to create a program where they would start working with healthcare customers, I had industry experience in healthcare and I had expertise in architecture. So I became part of that team and I became what was called an industry expert. And being an industry expert, you study all the systems and tech that a specific industry uses, and you know all the business rationale of an industry. So now when you meet with the CEO, the CFO, the CIO, the CTO, and you ask them about their business, you're a peer. You can be CXO relevant. You can tell them exactly all the ways that you can help them, and they know that you understand the business. So that's typically where you get into this special type of subject matter expertise called a thought leader. And I've spent most of my career as a thought leader. A thought leader is someone that develops deep tech expertise and has deep industry expertise. And then you can mix the two together and become the cloud architect for the banking world, where I was the cloud architect, network architect for the healthcare world. By combining your background and experience, you, Vanesh Nair, are in a beautiful position to do that. So lots of transferable skills from business. Remember, a cloud architect is 50% business and 50% engineer. So by doing that, and a lot of the business side of it is related to the financial modeling, the ROI modeling, the finding out the strategic goals of the business, finding out what the competitors are doing, finding out how do you optimize that business through the use of technology. That is the special skill of the architect. And if you've got that kind of industry background, you're someone that I'd work with to become more of a thought leader than just a generic cloud architect, because it would be not only an easier position for you to get, but it would have a much faster career progression because you've got some specialty there. So that would be my recommendation for you. Now, going back to Stephanie, she liked the concept of generic and then security. For me, Stephanie, it is about finding out exactly what you want and then just get the shortest distance between two paths is a straight line. For example, it would be much easier for me to help you find your first cloud architect job if you did a CEH or a CISSP in addition to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. It'd be so easy to help you find that job, it would be like nothing. Because the CEH is enough to get hired on your own, And the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional basically gives you a moderate understanding of the AWS services. You combine that with some cloud architecture training and some cloud security training and some security training, presentation skills, emotional intelligence, empathy, and that's going to be a very easy transition for you. So for you, Stephanie, my recommendation would be the shortest path, but I would rather speak to you offline. I think I can help you a lot for that. Okay, so Will Seb, what's the best way to apply? Okay, so I will tell you what we do with our students. Our process is very different. We work with a lot of people that are getting their first cloud architect job. And when you're going through your first cloud architect job, you know, these easy applies and sending 1,000,001 applications to the HR department and getting 1,000 rejections, we don't feel is a very useful way to do things. We are not saying do not apply at all. What we're saying is our preferred process is the following. We have a team of about 60 recruiters we use, but we also recommend you get your own recruiters. We add about 10 recruiters per week to our network, but we have about 60 that we use right now. The key with a recruiter is I call my favorite recruiter. There's a guy, Steve, in New York, that's one of the best recruiters I've ever worked with, and he can pretty much place any of my clients. And I call Steve and I say, Steve, I've got a great cloud security architect. I've worked with this cloud security architect for the last 16 weeks. They're well-spoken. They're highly intelligent. I trust their ability in security. They're very capable. They speak well, they write well, and they present well. And then Steve goes and calls the 3 people that Steve knows, and Steve says, I've got this cloud architect. It was recommended to me by this guy, Mike Gibbs. I know Mike Gibbs. I've been working with Mike Gibbs now for 20 some years. He sends me people. His people are great. He basically takes the people that were certified that are not knowledgeable, and he puts them through this rigorous cloud computing program. And he makes them cloud computing experts, and he teaches them how to speak, right? He teaches them business acumen. You need to speak to this person. So what happens? The hiring manager now speaks to the person, and they're already biased to like them because my friend Steve, who's placed the last 10 people that I sent to him, who got paid $20,000 to $50,000 on every person that I sent to him as a commission by the company to go find a good employee, because it's that hard to find a capable employee, then is what goes there. And then assuming they like this person, here's what happens. They say to the person, I said, okay, we're going to make you an offer. Now, I'm going to send your information to HR. At some point, you're going to have to fill out an application, and then we'll put a package together for you. So that's typically speaking the process that we use to help people get their first tech jobs. Now, we still want you to use your own recruiters, and we're never saying not to apply, but the best process is to not use HR when it comes to your first job. Why do we so explicitly try and avoid HR? We love HR. We have nothing negative to say about HR professionals, not even a word. But the thing is with HR are not tech people. So they have zero ability to assess your technical competency. And since they don't have any ability to assess your technical competence, what do HR things put on job descriptions? 1,000,001 years of experience, this, that, and the other thing. And that's basically as a proxy to basically that we hope that 20 years experience equals competency. I've interviewed a lot of people in my life. Let me tell you, experience and competency are not the same thing. You can be doing the same thing wrong every day. In martial arts, we say perfect practice makes perfect, but practice makes permanent. So if you're doing things wrong, you're going to reinforce your bad habits. So I don't worry so much about these kind of things. I worry more about getting people to their goals. So we try and avoid applying for jobs when possible. We try and use our recruiter network, because let's look at it from the hiring manager's perspective. You go through HR, assuming that you get past HR, which typically doesn't happen for someone with no experience. Then they send you to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager's interviewed you and the last 10 people that HR sent up, which is totally incapable of doing the job. So you meet with them and they're like, all right, another person. Versus if I call Steve and say, hi, Steve, I've got Nemri, for example. Nemri, smart, they're capable, they're this or that, the other thing. And then Steve calls the hiring manager and says, I've got this person named Nemri. Nemri's smart and capable, lots of expertise here, and here. I want you to interview him. The hiring manager is biased to like him versus assuming the worst. So that's why we try not to apply for jobs. We try and use our recruiting network when possible. We also teach you how to build your recruiting network, and we teach you how to build your own brand so that people come looking for you. People reach out to me at minimum once a day for a job, typically 2 to 3 times per day. And every time I make a YouTube video, somebody reaches out to me for a job. With every LinkedIn post, someone reaches out for me for a job. With every blog, someone reaches out for me to job. And the reason is it's hard to find a cloud architect. There are, from last time I checked, there are about 40,000 openings at AWS. There are about 35,000 at Azure, let alone the good 100,000 or so openings at all these organizations that use the cloud, such as banks, such as retail organizations. Everybody uses the cloud. It's that hard to find a cloud architect. There are so many open positions. The problem is people know the certifications and they know the name of a service and how to configure it, but they don't know architecture. So study architecture. That's what we do, but you can do it on your own, but study architecture. Architecture is how things work, why they work, and why to use them. Architecture is design. Architecture is not configuration. It is design. So train for the job you want, get the job you want, build the career you want, and have a great life. That's our process. So let's see if I think I've answered the questions that are here. If anyone has more questions, drop them in there. Or if I haven't answered your question, please let me know, because it can get sometimes a little bit overwhelming when you get a lot of questions coming out over here. Does anybody else have any questions for me? Okay, well, I'll stay here for a minute or two more. If anybody else has any questions, great. If not, I'll wait about 2 minutes and I'll close the call. I do strongly recommend that everybody watch the video we released today on interviewing. I think it will be pretty helpful to everyone. Okay, RamG241, which question is waiting for a reply? Okay, Wilson, lots of job openings asked you for coding experience. Is that really a thing for an architect? I have and actually I addressed the networking one, but I'll redo it. I'll answer it again. So I have never coded in 25 years. The majority of the architects that I know have never coded anything in their entire lives. Coding is something that DevOps people do. Coding is something that SysOps people do. Architecture is meeting with a client and asking questions. Architects will probably never code in their life, but a DevOps engineer will. A SysOps engineer definitely will, and a DevOps engineer definitely will, and sometimes cloud engineers will. They'll be writing some scripts. So big difference between an architect and the skill set in an engineer. So no coding is not there. How much networking knowledge is needed for a cloud architect role? As I mentioned before, the networking knowledge that's needed is understanding BGP and how it works, understand IP addressing, understand subnetting, understanding route summarization, understanding the BGP decision algorithm and how you manipulate or optimize traffic, understanding what NAT is, understanding things like BGP peering, and understanding route filtering, understanding access control lists, understanding the way you would connect to the internet and default routes and static routes and dynamic routes. They're the kinds of things that you would need to know RamG241 as a network architect, and as a cloud solution architect. That's the minimum level of networking that anybody should know. Okay, so Mohammed Farouk Mahudin, you completely agree that architect means business and communication, etc., other than engineering. How does GoCloud training skills provide training on other skills on training courses? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, but what I will tell you is we took basically the key components of an MBA program and we teach them there. We took the key components of the leadership and management training programs and we put them there. We have training on how the network works. We have training on how the data center works. We have training on how all the devices are that actually exist, what they work, how they work, and why you use it. Then we provide AWS training at the associate level, professional level, the advanced networking, and the advanced security. Then we have our students build every piece of technology that makes cloud computing possible, beginning with server virtualization on our VMware ESXi servers. Then we have our students build containers. Then we have them build firewalls. Then we have them build VPN concentrators, Active Directory systems to learn IAM. Then we have our students build their own cloud computing environments from scratch. So our students effectively build their own AWS type cloud, because that's how we build our students' knowledge. Then we have 2 live architectural training courses per week. And in these architectural training courses, we give you complicated designs where you actually have to interview a mock CIO, and then you actually have to design something. And we also have just so many things that are actually included with regards to training. So if you've got any questions, you can call me. I provided my number. I'll do it again, but we have a lot of content. It's a very intensive program that we run. We're kind of running it as a cross between a charitable mission as well as a business, and that's why we don't charge very much to do it, because it's important to me. I've been coaching people forever. So if you have any questions, you can ask me these questions. And that's typically the way we run things. So let's go past that. And if you have any more questions for me, Mohammed? Okay, so Stephanie, which industry security cert carries more weight? Well, I would say the biggest one right now for someone with a lack of experience is going to be the CEH. If you have more experience, the CISSP is great. I wouldn't focus on any of the cloud security things ever, because they're not going to help you. The CEH is extremely valuable, Stephanie, and I have many of my students working on the CEH. I also have some of my students working on the CISSP. There's some requirements in order to take that test. I have to help my students fill out those forms in order to be able to take it properly, unless you have a big security background, and it typically has to be signed by a manager or something like that. So I have a process for those with my students, but those 2 certifications hold a lot of weight. And what's actually going on, in my perspective, with these crazy cloud architect job descriptions is, first and foremost, no one even knows what a cloud architect is. In fact, if you actually attend my meeting tomorrow, we'll actually define what a cloud architect is as by the Gartner. So what ultimately happened is, so many people had some of these ridiculous job descriptions related to cloud architects. The Gartner group, who evaluates technology, decided to ask people, what does a cloud architect do? Because they were looking at these job descriptions and none of them felt anything related to a cloud architect role. In fact, not only was it not related to a cloud architect role, it wasn't even in the same universe. Some of them are DevOps roles, some of them are SysOps roles, some of them are this. Yesterday, I evaluated a cloud network engineering role for someone, and it had no networking on it at all. It was 100% Linux. So what happens in many cases is, what you find is, we're not, as hiring managers, we're not experts on writing job descriptions. And if I had to write a job description, I just don't have the time to do this. So what would I do? First thing I would do is I would go to Indeed. Then I would cut and paste the job description, and then I would add the 5-10 things that are important to me. And then I'd post my job description. And the next person that doesn't know how to write a job description either, that's ready to hire someone, they're going to cut and paste my job description, which now has the previous person's job description, plus my additional things. And they're going, this looks remarkably comprehensive. This is great. And then they're going to add their 5 or 10 things. And by the time you're done with it, this whisper down the lane game comes. And in the end, you've got a programmer, a DevOps specialist, a network engineer, a cloud engineer, a SysOps person, a cloud architect, a security engineer, an IAM person, all mixed into one job. So realistically speaking, these job descriptions are nuts. And the hiring managers know exactly what they want to hire. And that's why we work so hard to skip HR and go straight to the hiring manager, so you can impress them with what you actually need to know. So I'm going to tell you what CIO Magazine says. In case you don't want to believe me, I want you to know. And I will never put people in a position where they don't know where the source of the information is. So for all of you that are not used to the way organizations are designed, at the top of the organization, you have the chief executive officer, and the chief executive officer is responsible for the strategy of the company and to increase shareholder value. That's their main job. Directly underneath the CEO, you have the chief information officer, and the chief information officer is responsible for finding the technology systems that meet the CEO's goals, business, legal, technical goals. So that's the CIO is responsible. The CIO hires a VP of IT with a director of IT and the hiring manager. That's the typical flow of a tech organization. So if you want to know what a CIO, what you're going to do as a cloud architect, ask the person that's responsible for hiring you. And the person that sets the strategy in all these organizations is the chief information officer. Oh, good morning, Enzo. I'm so happy to see you here. So what did the CIO say? And this was published in CIO Magazine. The people that did this were Gartner. They basically interviewed every tech company in the world and find out industry trends. So Here's what was published in CIO magazine. So this is going to be as accurate as you get. A cloud architect's responsibilities are leading the cultural change for cloud adoption, developing and coordinating the architecture, developing a strategy, and coordinating the adoption of the cloud. Next thing they say is helping to find talent, meaning helping to interview, assessing applications, hardware, and software, creating a cloud broker team, establishing best practices for the use of the cloud across the company, selecting cloud providers, overseeing and governance and mitigating risk, working with the IT security people to basically come up with a security environment and provide an incident response, managing budgets, estimating costs, and operating at scale. Note, there was not a single part of that where you heard use the command line. There was not a single DevOps coding thing there. Note, there was not anything related to the management console. Note, there was nothing related to the CLI. Note, there was nothing that you'd see on some of these bogus job descriptions. Design, 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 build a team, lead a team, work with all the other people, and design. This is the job of the cloud architect. We hiring managers know it. We architects know it. And the training that's out there with the certification, and that's why we created this company completely, because we saw what was out there, is related to configuring. But that's not what cloud architects do. So if you want to be a cloud architect, train to be a cloud architect. Do not train to be somebody not. So that's our perspective, and that's from CIO magazine. And my students, one of my students just recently started a job as a cloud architect, and she said to me, I'm completely hands off. And I said, well, yeah, it's an architect, boss, but I've been trying to tell you. Another one of my students is a cloud architect, and he says, I'm hands off. I was hands off as an architect. Why? Because architects are designers. Engineers are configurers and builders. So just understand the difference. And it doesn't matter which you want to be. If you want to be a cloud engineer, that is wonderful. You're going to have a ball with it if you like that kind of thing. Train to be a cloud engineer. You want to be a cloud architect? Again, wonderful job. Train to be a cloud architect. If you want to be a physician, don't study cloud computing. Study medicine. Don't be like me and study medicine first and then go to cloud computing. But in general, if you want, study what you actually desire to do, and then you're going to get to your goals, and then great things are going to happen to you. Anybody else have any more questions for me? Oh, wait, I see you, Gotham. Hi, you are a software developer. How can you change your career to a cloud architect? So, Gotham AG, what type of cloud architect would you like to be? Would you like to be the cloud architect in the way we're describing it, the way a cloud architect is a designer of systems? Or would you like to do other things on the cloud, such as DevOps, which are not cloud architect roles? And when you tell me that, I'll let you know. Now, Alonzo asked a question while we're waiting for your answer. What would the first day of a cloud architect hire be like? Well, Alonzo, that is a great question. Typically speaking, for about the first month as a cloud architect, you're going to be going to an organization. You're probably going to be meeting people. You're typically going to be learning about the services that they actually provide. You're going to be building your team, buying a lot of people lunches, taking a lot of people out for drinks if that's something you're philosophically okay with. And you're going to be really just spending a lot of time meeting people. You're going to be building your relationships that are necessary to build your team. Most organizations may not have you even to think about doing design or anything for a couple of months. Some are faster, some are slower based upon the size of an organization. And initially what's going to happen is you're going to go there, they're going to onboard you. They're going to make sure you're trained on all the things that they do. They're going to make sure that you've got a mentor, most likely, hopefully, inside of that organization. And inside of that organization, you're going to start meeting people. See, when you design something, let's say you're a cloud architect, you're not going to be the only person designing the solution. You're going to have a cloud security architect with you. You're going to have an IAM person. And IAM and security are related, but they're different. You are going to have a DevOps person. You're going to have a SysOps person. You're going to have a scripting person, most likely. You're going to have some software developers. You're going to have some network people. You may have a lot of other cloud architects, and you're just going to be a big part of a team. So the first month or so, Alonzo, is going to be based upon building and developing relationships with your team. Now, after that, here's what a day of a cloud architect is like. Typically speaking, you'll wake up, you'll either work from home or go to the office. Now, when you're in this position as the cloud architect, either working from home or going to the office, you'll either be writing up a design or designing a presentation for a customer that you already met with, or you're going to be meeting with a client. And all of this is going to be related to meeting with a client, getting requirements, performing an assessment of the client systems, and designing. So realistically speaking, Alonzo, that's what the day is going to be like. It's going to be conference calls. It's going to be Zoom calls or WebEx meetings. It's going to be interviews with clients. It's going to be writing. It's going to be presenting, and it's going to be designing. That is the role. There'll also be some responses to something called requests for proposals and requests for information, where basically somebody's going to basically ask for 2 or 3 providers to design a solution and what your solution would be, and you'll be part of these documents. Some of these RFI and RFP documents get very ugly. Thankfully, those big ugly ones don't only happen with big organizations. I've worked with RFPs where the people ask 5 pages of questions, and I've worked with RFPs where the response was 300 to 500 pages because they asked us 200 pages plus of questions. So that's something else you'll do as a cloud architect, but also as an engineer, you'll also be involved in those processes too, or responding, but mostly as an architect. Alonzo, did I answer your question there? Okay, Alonzo. Well, from there, I think I've asked yours, unless you. Okay, you did. Thanks. Okay, Stephanie, please tell us more about the difference between IAM and security architect. Okay, Stephanie, that makes sense. So a security architect is responsible for all of the security. So like a typical security architecture would include protecting the perimeter of the systems with the firewall. Right behind the firewall, you'll have an IDS, IPS system. Then you'll have some form of DDoS protection. Then you'll have some kind of an ACL. Then you'll have something like a security group and then a host-based firewall. Then you're going to disable the unnecessary services on your systems. You're going to patch your systems. You're going to make sure you encrypt your stored data. You're going to create a policy for the organization. And you'll be looking into the IAM and the design. An IAM architect or an IAM engineer more specifically is going to be focused on all the identity and access management. They're going to be focused on the Active Directory systems and integrating the Active Directory, typically like SAML 2.0, to like the cloud IAM environment. And IAM people specialize on users and groups and permissions, where security people focus on the architecture and the overall design of the system. So Stephanie, I hope I answered your question satisfactorily for you. Hamza Munawar, you've done the associate course, great. Where should you start from? So could you tell me what your goal job actually is and what you actually have done in your background? That'll help me determine where you should start, because I need to know your ultimate destination and your starting place prior to making any recommendations. Because otherwise it's just guessing. Great, Stephanie. And Hamza, I'm happy to answer your question. I just need to tailor it to your background and level of experience so it's meaningful and valuable for you. You are from a telecom engineering background. Okay, that's actually fantastic. Do you have any networking certifications like a CCNP or a CCDP or CCIE? And what would you desire to do in the cloud? If you can let me know that too, because you can do pretty much anything you could outside the cloud in the cloud. So if you're interested in security, great. You want to do a job. You're doing a job as a network engineer. Okay, wonderful. How many years experience as a network engineer, and what certifications do you have? You're CCNA certified, and okay. Have you done any design, Hamza, in the past, or is it just configuration on the network? Like, have you done any BG? I mean, typically you wouldn't as a CCNA, but I've seen CCNAs, some that are quite good. They could be doing BGP traffic engineering and QoS design. Have you done any of that, Hamza? 6 months experience, fresh graduate. Okay, so fresh out of school, goal to do something on the cloud. Now you're actually giving me the information. So if you're fresh out of school, you've got 6 months experience doing some basic networking, and you've got some implementation skills, the question becomes, do you go down the cloud engineer path or the cloud networking path? And if you're very verbally gifted, the cloud architect path is better. If you don't like to talk to people, the cloud engineering path is better. It's a different training for both. So are you looking for more of a customer facing role like a cloud architect, which has a much better long-term career path, at least financially, or you like to be one of those people that does the engineering? And if you tell me that information, Hamza, I can start making some recommendations for you. But because now I know your starting point, now I just need to know your goal destination. And then Bukhar, India, I see your question. I'll get you next. Okay, Hamza, I'm not sure what your goal is. So if you'd like to switch towards cloud, okay, what cloud, Joe? So if I were to go down the architecture path versus the engineering path, they're both cloud. So the architecture path is a client-facing role. It's a design role. The cloud engineer role is a configuration role. There's also cloud security roles versus cloud networking roles. Honestly, you're interested in network. You're not interested in networking right now. Okay. Do you want to be in front of customers or do you want to be behind the scenes, Hamza? Okay. So you want to be a cloud architect. That's fine. So going from where you're at now, first and foremost, you're going to have to learn the network in the data center. The CCNA may give it to you. It may not be enough. At the CCNA, often people don't know a lot about routing. They know more about configuration. So what you would need to do, you'd need to actually learn BGP. Make sure you understand that, how it works, why to use it. And it's not just connecting to the internet, it's with overlapping IP address spaces and things like that. Make sure you're good at understanding how access control lists work. Make sure you have a good understanding of how stateful firewalls work. And what I mean by stateful, how they monitor the traffic going out, for example, and keep state. And that's before they know how to allow the return traffic. Make sure you know all about that. Make sure you know all about VLANs, .1Q tagging, VLAN trunking. Make sure you have all good solid skills there. Then learn the net. After you learn the network, then learn the data center. Set up server virtualization, build containers, build a firewall, build a VPN concentrator, learn IAM by setting up Microsoft Active Directory. When you're done that, build a Nutanix cloud or an OpenStack Ansible cloud. We recommend students build the OpenStack Ansible cloud because it's what IBM uses. We love the Nutanix cloud, and I think it's a fantastic solution, but it's harder to set up the OpenStack Ansible cloud. And having some knowledge of Linux is very good for these cloud roles. And by using the OpenStack Ansible cloud, which is free, and it's based off of a Linux kernel, it forces you to get some Linux knowledge too, which is a very useful thing to kind of do. So that's typically the process. After that, you must learn how to present. You must learn how to speak. You must learn how to write at the executive level. You must learn how to present to a wide variety of audiences. And then you're going to need to get certain certifications. Minimum level of certification to get hired is typically speaking the Certified Solution Architect Professional. And if it's going to be your first cloud architect job, you're probably going to need an industry certification or two. You have a CCNA, which looks good. You could bump that up to the CCNP, and that would look like a really good cloud networking thing. And then if you could get a basic Linux thing, you should be a fantastic candidate. Or if you found that you were interested in cloud security, you could do something like a CEH along with the Certified Solution Architect Professional. And both of those would give you great cloud architect jobs. One would be based more on security versus if you were to do the CCNP, the Certified Solution Architect Professional, and basically like a basic Red Hat Linux thing, that would give you the data center and Linux kind of background. But then make sure you're still doing the kind of labs that I'm talking about. Make sure you're working on understanding how things work and presenting. That's how we train our architects. That's what we do in all of our programs. And if you're with us, that's fantastic. And if you're not with us, that's okay. These are the things you should do on your own, and you're still going to get there. But that's the way to do it. So Miracle Tay, you have the same question as Hasma, but you're coming from finance. The answer for you would be the same, Tay, but I actually would need to know where your goals are. Is it the same cloud architect job or is it something else? Okay. So Tushar, and how important is it for a person to code well? It depends on the job. For example, if you wanted to be a cloud architect, you probably will never code in your entire life, and it's completely not important. If you wanted to be a DevOps person or a SysOps person, coding is important. And if you wanted to be a cloud engineer, to some degree, that's also important. But if you're going to be a cloud architect, it's a customer-facing role, and you're probably never going to code in your life. I've had a 25-year architect career, and I've never coded a single anything. And most of the people that I know that have principal and distinguished architect roles have never coded anything, but what they had instead was extremely deep knowledge about how things work and how they work together and how to design them. So cloud architect, design role, cloud engineer, implementation role. If you want to be an implementer, you're going to need to code. If you want to be a DevOps person, you're going to need to code. If you want to be a SysOps person, you're going to be in a code. If you want to be an architect, no need to code, because you're not going to be coding ever. And in fact, you may not ever touch the management console. You may never touch the CLI. Typically speaking, the way it works, you meet with a client, you design something, and you hand it off to an engineering team to build it. You may even hand it off to do the proof of concept. So you may never code or script in your entire life. So I hope I've answered your question there, Tushar. Alonzo. When speaking to a client during the customer discovery process of what their systems and what they need, what cloud agnostic software do cloud architects use to assess costs and budgets? So, realistically speaking, assessing cost and budgets, you're going to have to ask the financial team. So from the customer side, it's going to come from the CFO's office. They're going to be able to put these things. And then when it comes to the cloud providers, the only way that I've ever seen it done is organizations literally go to every cloud provider and they literally start costing it out. They typically have someone to do this that's not exactly the architect per se. They have someone on the team that basically can go and do the research of the cost and the things like this. For example, there's typically inside sales and outside sales inside of organizations. And inside sales, for inside sales, the organizations typically have someone that goes and reaches out to people and then sets up meetings and also does cost analysis, whereas outside sales would meet with clients. Well, they also have inside systems engineers that typically do these kinds of things for you, and outside people that meet with clients. So I hope that answers your question. And then Miracle Tay, same question. Oh, so Miracle Tay, to be a cloud engineer, but you're coming from finance, you're going to have to. Do you have any tech background, Miracle Tay? And then Stephanie, what I typically do is while I'm waiting for Miracle Tay to come back with that, I'm going to say that I typically leave 2 hours open after every time I make a YouTube live or every time I do a webinar. So anytime within 2 hours after this would be perfect for me. And if for some reason you call me and I can't take it, I'll call you back same day. After practicing medicine for a long period of time, I always return phone calls quickly. It's just part of my everyday ordinary life and the way I do things. Okay, next on the list of questions. Miracle Tay, you retracted your message. So, okay, you meant cloud engineer. So if you desire to be a cloud engineer, you're going to have to get that much, much, much deeper level of knowledge. So you're going to have to focus on the certified solution architect professional, and you're going to have to be doing hands-on, hands-on, hands-on. And if you want to do that, then you're going to need to learn how to do scripting. So you're going to have to learn things like Python if you want to be a cloud engineer. And you're also going to have to get a deep knowledge of Linux. So you're going to have to get really good at Linux. So maybe a Red Hat certified system, maybe a Red Hat, what do you call it? They have a systems engineering one, the RHCE you might need. And then maybe you're going to have get some kind of networking background like a CCNA, where it's going to be an implementation one, and or maybe a CCNP. So it's going to be a much harder for you to go become a cloud engineer than a cloud architect. And it's going to give you about half of the pay over the long term. So just understand that, Miracle Tay. If you want to go from where you're at to cloud engineer, it's going to be a lot harder when you don't have a big tech background. And not only is it going to be a lot harder, the pay is going to be a lot lower. So you can do it, but you're going to have to get deep in the weeds in terms of cloud engineering. And that means configuring everything at the command line management console, understanding APIs, understanding scripting, understanding automation, understanding Linux and being real solid on Linux, configuring things, administering Linux, and doing the same thing on the networking side. The cloud engineer is a deep technical role. And if that's your desire, Miracle Tay, that's what you're going to have to do. I don't typically point people down the direction of cloud engineering roles unless they love doing it, unless they love being hands-on. I like to point people in. But I wanted to answer your questions in both directions. Who else has a question for me? I have 13 more minutes, so any more questions that anybody desires, I'm happy to stay on until 11 a.m. Eastern. Did I miss anybody's questions along the way? Because sometimes it's a little challenging with all these things coming from all different directions in text. Okay, so it's looking like it's getting on the quiet side. We've been on the call for about an hour and 48 minutes. Okay, Cloud 569, you've got a question. Okay, do I recommend any technical white papers to build knowledge? Cool dude 569. White papers are always good. They do add knowledge. I think you'll get a lot more knowledge out of industry white papers than AWS white papers. Look, there's a lot of things I love about AWS, but I found their documentation to be very weak. For example, if you were to get Cisco documentation, and in the Cisco documentation, it would explain what everything is, how it works, and why you would use it. Juniper Networks would do the same thing. Palo Alto would do it. Most of the information on the AWS white papers is just how to configure stuff, which is great if you want to be a cloud engineer, but horrible if you want to be a cloud architect. So I do recommend reading white papers because it's helpful, but I also recommend reading industry things and industry white papers way outside of cloud. Things from networking, from Cisco and Juniper. If you want to learn DNS, I'd learn it from F5. If you want to learn virtualization, which you need to, I'd learn it from VMware. If you want to learn Kubernetes or Docker containers, I'd read their documentation. If you want to read security, I'd read Palo Alto security, Cisco security documentation, Fortinet documentation. That's the kind of white papers that I would do in addition to the training. So I hope I answered your question, Cool Dude 5699. Alonzo, do you recommend the CERT pathway of taking the CEH to the CISSP? Well, Alonzo, they're kind of different certifications. The CEH is a deeply technical certification, and it's a hacking certification. And normally speaking, it's more of an engineering certification than an architect certification. The reason I recommend the CEH as a certification for many of my cloud security students is the CEH is what's called a expert level certification. It's like the Cisco Certified Internet Expert, and then you don't just take a test, they make you do something. So there's two parts of the CEH exam. There's a written exam, and anybody can cheat on a written exam by a practice test and just pass and know nothing. But there's also a practical exam where they literally make you hack into multiple systems. And that level of expertise necessary to pass the hacking exam, combined with a certified solution architect professional, makes the perfect portfolio for knowing that you've got a really competent security person and someone that knows something about AWS. The combination is instantly get hired. Now, the CISSP, of which I had and maintained for a long time, is really about taking an environment and learning how to write a security policy and optimizing the security policy and designing security for an entire organization. So first, the CEH is great, and the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is really enough for anyone. Now, if someone wants to really progress in their career as a cloud security architect, that's when you start looking at, you do go the path of an MBA, and if I remember correctly, Alonzo, you have an MBA. So do you combine that with something such as the CISSP? And if you had a CISSP, a CEH, and the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, that would be, especially with your MBA, a portfolio that could have you as a distinguished cloud architect or distinguished engineer or a thought leader in your field, and where you could have a fantastic job. And I think you'd be very happy in that. So that's kind of the process is, first and foremost, we focus on what's necessary to get you hired. And then after that, there's career optimization. I hope I answered your question there, Alonzo. Please let me know. So, okay. Alonzo, awesome. We got you covered. Well, Cool Dude 5699, it depends on how good you are. I routinely get offers for $300,000 a year plus cloud architect roles, and but that's also because I've got a tremendous amount of experience. These are unsolicited things that people just reach out to me on a daily basis. So as a cloud architect, you can actually earn very well. Average cloud architect earns $153,900 per year. It turns out to be $593 a day on average, but that's average. In cloud security, it'd be no challenge to get that same $150,000 or $155,000 intro job. And as you progress in your career, you could easily earn, $300,000 a year there. I also earned very good money as a network architect, very good money. And there's lots of money to be made as a network architect as well. Having said that, I don't recommend people becoming straight network architects anymore. And I feel really sad, and I feel like a traitor saying that. First and foremost, I consider myself to be a network architect, and I love the network. But the reality is, by 2023, 40% of all systems are going to be on the cloud. And in the cloud, network architects like me, here's what we do. We build the cloud for the cloud providers. So me and most of my teams, we were designing cloud since long before we called it cloud computing. First cloud I worked on was Frame Relay. Then the next cloud I worked on was ATM. Then my organization decided to work on something called VPLS, which was Ethernet over VPLS in a cloud environment. And then we set up the data center. Then we called this cloud. Then we added another cloud layer. So I've been building clouds for 25 years now. And the really senior network architects are hired by people like Oracle. They're hired by Google. They're hired by places like AWS to actually design the systems for the cloud providers to make the cloud providers work. So that's your opportunity there. Again, there's lots of good money to be made in cloud architect. I know many people that have $300,000 to $500,000 a year jobs doing that, but they are also very experienced. They are good speakers. They are good writers. They are thought leaders. They are experts. So you're asking financially what you can do between pay. Any of these things can pay a lot based on how good you are. Here's the thing that's necessary to earn a lot in your technology career. If you become a jack of all trades, meaning a little scripting, a little this, a little this, a little this, you will never earn a lot in your career. The sad reality is, you get a family medicine doctor, for example, that earns $200,000 a year, which is great, and they know a little about a lot of things. And you get a neurosurgeon that knows a lot about a very small thing, and that neurosurgeon gets paid $1 million plus a year. Same thing happens in this. Become a thought leader, become an expert on a small area. You will have a tremendous amount of pay coming your way. Focus a little bit on DevOps, SysOps, scripting, engineering this. You're going to be a jack of all trades. You're not going to be, no company's going to be able to hire you for the most critical things they need. And the critical things they need are where they pay you a lot. So part of it to really earn a lot in the cloud computing environment or any tech career is becoming an expert. The second thing that I'll tell you, you can easily double or triple your salary in cloud computing by speaking better, writing better, having more executive presence, better communication skills. So if you want to earn more in an architecture role, it is completely related after your technical competency and your depth of knowledge in a single specialty, related to your writing skills, related to your presentation skills, related to your leadership skills, your management skills, emotional intelligence, interview skills, and enthusiasm. That is how you build a tech career. It is equally, if not more important. Statistically speaking, the biggest impact of your long-term career success is your emotional intelligence. And individuals that are emotionally intelligent earn on average $29,600 more per year. That's just emotional intelligence, which over the course of a 30-year career is almost $1 million. And that's just emotional intelligence. That doesn't include presentation training. That does not include speech training. So if you want a great cloud computing career, you have to combine those executive skills and depth of knowledge and pick a specialty, and that's what you need to do. So that's how I would typically recommend that. So Tushar Anand, you were asked a question on which Red Hat Linux I have a specialty for cloud architect. The RHCA this is like the administrator one, is typically enough in most cases. We do really love the RHCE, the Red Hat Certified Engineer. That is or whatever they call it these days, the RHCE. That is a very strong knowledge certification, and we love that certification. The reason we like it is it really teaches you about how Linux works, why you would use it. It gives you lots of knowledge, and that knowledge is directly transferable to architecting systems on the cloud. So we do love that. So I hope I answered your question there. And are there any other questions for me? Okay, so what I'm going to do is the following. I am going to do the. All right, see, that sounds like a very good option. I think that will serve you very well. I think it will give you a tremendous amount of opportunities. So what I'm going to add is I'm going to add 2 links for our programs for any of you that are interested. And that did not work. I'm going to just so Miracle Tay, what I like to do is I like to speak with you, and after I speak with you, I can make a recommendation. But realistically speaking, with where your goals are, the program we have would get you to your goals. I generally like to speak to everyone, and the reason I like to speak to everyone is I just like to make sure that you know what we're doing and how we're doing. But that program itself will definitely get you to your cloud architect career goals. We've got lots of background in there and lots of experience with it, and we've been helping people find their first tech jobs for 20 plus years or getting promoted. And Miracle Tay, I think that would be a great program for you. I'm also dropping in my phone number, and that way, any of you that desire to call me, have a question. For those of you that are only interested in lab training, which is not my recommendation, but there are some people that just want to do hands-on labs and get some tech training along the way without the soft skills, emotional intelligence. Like, for example, is if you were looking for more cloud engineering roles, we have this Cloud Architect Experience program. I try to bring people into the Cloud Architect Career Development program because it offers much, much, much more. But there are people, for example, that are interested in cloud engineering. And for people that are interested in cloud engineering, that Cloud Architect Experience program is a great, inexpensive way to learn the cloud, as well as get hands-on cloud training. So, Reginald, are there any good news for practice sites for writing good technical papers? God, I wish there was. What I can tell you is I'm going to drop the link to it right now. We actually, me and some executives from several of the companies I've worked for over the years have actually created a leadership program that's, realistically speaking, is designed to take people from for example, management, from say engineering roles or architect roles, to moving them up the principal architect, the distinguished architect path. Plus, additionally, what we're trying with that program, we've got a side if you wanted to go from manager to senior manager to director or VP. So we have a leadership program. We've got that covered in there. Having said that, I wanted to give a sample on how to do technical writing. And I made a video yesterday. I'm dropping the link for that video. And that video really talks about how to write a technical document for readability. The link I sent is giving you a 404 on which link, Tafari? Was it for the YouTube video or for my course? So I will drop the link to my course one more time. And thank you, Tafari. Here is the link. Yes, Tafari, there's a payment plan option for my course. What happens when you go to purchase, there's a little arrow and you can do a payment plan. But also just make sure that you have the coupon code to make it 25% off, because I'd like to give you guys as much quantity and quality training as we can for a low cost. Any more questions for me? Okay, well, if there are, just give me a call and we can speak. I've set aside the next couple hours for phone calls because I typically get a lot of phone calls after these sessions, and that's great. And I am happy to speak with anyone that desires. So if you desire to reach out to me, let me know. If you desire to send an email to us, you can also let us know. Alonzo, wonderful having you on this call. Everyone that was part of this call, I am so grateful to have the opportunity to spend the morning with you. We're super passionate about the Cloud Architect community. We like to do everything that we can, so we're really happy that you're here. We're going to be running some boot camps. We're going to be running a lot of exciting things, so please keep track of our channel. And guess what? In about 3 or 4 days, we're going to introduce a cloud architect collaboration platform free to the industry. So I've got a couple people in my organization that spent about a month, literally a month, building me a Slack channel, and they've integrated Zoom and they've integrated all these applications. And what's going to happen is we're going to let our current students can use this platform to really interact with each other live, and they're super excited about it. But so that's going to be great. But also we're having a public section, and in the public section, we're going to be promoting a lot of training and videos and ebooks and things like that. So you'll have access to that. I have a huge recruiter network, so we're going to invite some tech recruiters, so you can be on our systems, you can ask questions. We'll do what we can to assist you, and we can use that as a platform to help find the jobs that my students aren't ready to take or not interested in at the current time. Obviously, our students get first priority over all jobs and all things like that, but we've got a huge network and we've got lots of opportunities. So we'll announce our Slack channel. We think there can be some great things. And here, I wish you were here earlier, but what I can tell you is tomorrow we are having a webinar, and we're going to teach you how to get your first cloud architect job. We are going to teach you everything that you need to know, every step along the way that's necessary to get hired, and how to do it. And then you will be able to ask questions live, because it's Zoom. You'll be able to ask verbal questions. And then after the verbal questions, you will be able to get answers live. So we'll do 1 hour presentation, and we'll do 1 hour of questions and answers live. So you'll get any questions that you have answered. So that's my recommendation. If any of you have enjoyed today and you don't mind leaving a like or a comment, that really helps us as the channel grows. So we'd be very grateful. Again, only if you enjoy the time. Otherwise, we would not ask you to do these things. We want to stay clean, calm, and ethical in everything we do as an organization. I want to thank you again one more time. Nahar, I'd love you to be part of the discussion tomorrow. I actually did answer most of those questions that you had throughout this video if you want to watch the replay, but I highly recommend you join us tomorrow. I think you are going to have a wonderful day, and we're really happy to, I really think you'll enjoy it. So thank you very much. Anybody here that desires to reach me knows how to reach me, and I look forward to speaking to many of you very soon. Take care, everyone.